Joy here with Real Progressive. Tonight I am joined by Paul Glover, who is a Green running for governor in Pennsylvania. So thank you so much for joining us, Paul. Doing the research for you was not easy because your resume is so extensive. It's like pages and pages and pages. You were the founder of 18 organizations for ecology and social justice, the author of 6 books, and the former professor of urban studies at Temple University. So do you want to kind of give us a background of your passions and what you focus on and what inspires you to do all of that?
Well, I'm especially keen to emphasize and enact grassroots ownership of land, law, and money for ecology and justice. And as you say, I've started some 18 organizations and campaigns that model that direction, the practical capability of average people to come together to own and control land, law, and money in cities particularly, to create a society and a civilization which distributes that power on behalf of future generations. Beautiful cities. To me, the purpose of life is to appreciate beauty, to defend beauty, and to expand beauty. And everyone has a different idea of what beauty is, but to me, the weaving of nature back into cities is an essential theme. So among the organizations I've started is the Philadelphia Orchard Project, POP, and we have 59 orchards in the city so far. Started a local currency called Ithaca Hours years ago, designed paper money for my community, and thousands of individuals and 500 businesses traded millions of dollars of our own ecological money, stimulating a regional ecological economy. I started the Ithaca Health Alliance, whose members paid $100 a year and were covered for 12 categories of common emergency anywhere in the world to specified maximum amounts. And then we built a free clinic that we owned, which put holistic and standard care side by side. So a bunch of other things, exploring and intruding into food, fuel, housing, healthcare, planning, education, transportation, and finance without having a specific credential in any of these things, but reinterpreting all of these essentials of civilization through the lens, again, of ecology and justice.
Wow, I feel like I need to do more.
Well, you'll get old someday, and you've already got a nice one, but the older you get, it sort of piles up.
Well, that's something I found so fascinating about looking at your website is you want to bring a lot of stuff back to our state as far as farming and plants and things like that. I've only been able to interview one Pennsylvania candidate, so I'm excited to have someone else from my state. I know we definitely have the land to do these things, but it's not often someone with your passion actually comes along and tries to implement it. We saw that you are also working with other people in urban areas and everything like that to try and get them more involved in planting things as well. So how did you get started into that?
As I have done with other organizations that I've started, I write a manifesto. I create a colorful display. I have a background in graphic design and journalism and arrogance. And in a beneficial way, put forward a plan, a simple plan by which average people could take power over one or another of these elements of civilization, including, as you're asking, about ecology, about agriculture, and particularly urban agriculture. And so I put together a display, put together some simple literature, a manifesto, a little website, and a sign-up sheet stood out in public places and introduced this proposal. And after about 500 people had signed on, provided their emails, I sent out an announcement of the first meeting, and a bunch of people showed up. And the people who kept showing up became the core of this. And in fact, they actually knew how to plant trees. I didn't. I didn't wait to know.
Oh, wow.
But I knew that it was something that would enhance the life of the city. And so in the 10 years since it began, now 11 years, thousands of people have come out to help plant the trees, fruit trees, nut trees, and berry bushes, including hundreds and hundreds of children who have never seen a worm before. The kids in the city need to be connected to nature and enjoy it, nurture it, and appreciate its benefit, even to urban life. So connecting human beings, children particularly, back to nature through the use of vacant land, of which we have so much in Philadelphia, for agriculture as a priority. And this confronts the typical gentrification process, shoving poor people aside so that developers can get richer and richer, and so that the cities can be whiter and whiter and whiter and hipper and hipper and hipper. So creating urban eco-villages, which consist of orchards, of course, and greenhouses and tiny houses, or otherwise solar cabins, and health clinics, free clinics, anything which employs lowest income people in lowest income neighborhoods to do things which directly benefit and empower them. I'm especially keen to promote cooperative development. 100 years ago, healthcare was managed by health cooperative organizations, which created hospitals, orphanages, old folks' homes, sanitaria, paid sickness and death benefits, and the members paid pennies per week. This process was shoved aside by corporate colonization of America, and it is an outlier now. I did this again, as I mentioned, in Ithaca, New York, with the health co-op there. Very successful. Doing it now in Pennsylvania, though it is against the law in this state. And this is how society progresses, of course, when people get fed up with the constraints of law, which serve the rich rather than the poor, and more of us having a harder and harder time with health insurance particularly. This is a health insurance rebellion. And one of the books that I've written is How to Take Power, which describes a process which has been, for me, very successful over many years of finding the point of vulnerability in any giant institution, flipping the switch and watching it deflate. So as a candidate for governor of Pennsylvania, I put forward not only a platform which applies to the entire state, which deals with the chronic crises and crimes of our state, but introduce specific practical policies which redress, which flip the switch and flip this pyramid of power so that the people who are otherwise outsiders become the insiders. And that's, I think, the best that a politician can do once elected, open the door for the insurgent organizations to move in. A governor has considerable executive power, but needs to constantly authorize, empower, and invite the base to move in, to push through. An official at the top of the pyramid alone cannot himself or herself make the enormous change which is urgently needed. but again can open the door so that people who are otherwise outsiders move in.
Absolutely. And I was actually going to ask you about the gentrification that a lot of people in Philadelphia are fearing. And even I'm in Harrisburg. A lot of people here are fearing it as well.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I, I protested Governor Wolf about 2 weeks ago. For those of you who are not in Pennsylvania, he is considered a progressive by people who are Democrats and not progressive, essentially. And he is extremely dismissive of all things dealing with the environment. Next to Texas, Pennsylvania is the second highest with pipelines. He has not answered the people's calls for help, even people who have these things right on their own lawns. So that right away is a huge difference that stands out to me between you and Tom.
Yes, as the Green Party candidate for governor, I am the only candidate who would ban fracking. Governor Wolf has issued over 4,000 fracking permits during his tenure. And although he has finally yielded to the demand that no fracking be done in the Delaware River Basin, he is still allowing fracking fluids to be dumped in the Delaware River Basin, which is essentially fracking the Delaware River Basin. And fracking poisons the future. So as you're saying, there are a lot of Democrats who embrace it as a religion, as though it is a D branded on their cheek, and who will follow the donkey anywhere it leads. As I've been saying, Republicans will kick you over the cliff, and Democrats will escort you politely over the edge. And so it's...
I love it.
Either a scowl or a smile. The same machine operates behind the scenes. And a lot of my friends are devoted Democrats. A whole lot, of course, are renegades. But among my good friends are devoted Democrats. And so we have this back and forth. And they think, well, the only practical thing to do, the only realistic thing to do is for you Greens to get out of the way and allow the less horrid monster to win. And through this process, over 40, 50 years, the Democratic Party has allowed itself to be pushed closer and closer to the edge of the cliff. And it become even more corporate and more right-wing than Richard Nixon, who we thought was the scariest thug in the basement. And every president since then has gotten, though either with a scowl or a smile, more and more drifted into the corporate embrace. Here we find ourselves today with worse and worse choices. So elections are a part of activism, obviously. I regard the Green Party as the electoral arm of the insurgent grassroots movement. There is endlessly more to be done, and endlessly more wonderful things are being done across the country and around the world by hundreds of thousands, by millions of organizations. And as a candidate for governor, I seek mainly to articulate, celebrate that kind of activism, and to frame it within the opportunities that a governor has to invite that wonderful change to take over our state.
Absolutely. This come across a lot of Greens? I mean, you're in Philadelphia, so you have that advantage. But do you have any idea how many Greens we have in our state? What the percentage is?
Well, the Greens are now an official ballot line, and people can register as Greens online. I don't recall the URL for that, but if you Google Department of State, Pennsylvania, and voter enrollment, something like that, then you're directed to a website where you can, with a few clicks, become an enrolled green. I don't have the stats before me right this minute. But
I tried to Google it and I had no luck. You don't want us to know. You know that.
Tens of thousands. But of course, people cross party lines. I've been collecting signatures on the nominating petition and have been gathering them from people in all political parties or people not registered in a political party. 4 years ago, the Green Party had asked me to be their candidate for governor as well. At the time, to be on the ballot needed 17,000 signatures, while the Democrats and Republicans needed 2,000 signatures. We sued them in federal court and won, and now the playing field is significantly more even. And with 5,000 signatures gathered over 4.5 months, can appear on the ballot to raise these issues in very public forums, to be interviewed even more than I was last time by organizations and by journalists such as yourself, and to be in the debates and sit there a little bit better dressed, not entirely better dressed than I am right now, but somewhat better dressed than I am in the debates to confront Governor Wolf directly about the difference between himself and Franklin Roosevelt. You know, the Democrats are no longer the party of Franklin Roosevelt, and the Republicans are no longer the party of Abraham Lincoln. They've all drifted into a corporate embrace, and they use the rhetoric of being tough or being gentle or friendly, according to what they imagine their base prefers to hear. But again, that same corporate machine is running show.
Absolutely. As far as I digress a little, but I'm curious what your thought is. As we had a lot of votes for Jill Stein in PA.
For who?
I wrote in Bernie.
You had a lot of votes for who?
Jill Stein.
Oh, Jill Stein. Okay. Sure.
I was going to say, I know you know who that is.
Oh, yeah, I met Jill. Yeah, we've talked.
So I wrote in Bernie, and of course, I have no idea how many people did because I'll never find out. They really don't give a shit. But do you think the number they gave us in Pennsylvania is accurate to the number of people who actually voted for Jill?
Well, I don't trust machine voting at all. In fact, there's a movement in Pennsylvania for a paper backup. It is well known that computer voting can be screwed with and has been screwed. And so I have actually no idea whether and to the extent the account may or may not have been accurate in Pennsylvania. But I don't trust it, of course.
Right. What do you want to see in Pennsylvania change? Do you want paper ballots? Do you want primaries? What are the changes?
Well, the best of all possible worlds, of course, is for ranked voting, where if you select your first, second, third, fourth choice, and if your first choice does not win, it gets folded into the votes for the person who actually did get and so this whole notion of being a spoiler is eradicated. And of course, Democrats could have enacted that years ago, and they would have had more votes than they would have had because the people who are fed up with the Democrats would have gotten second choice folded in. There are a couple three cities, in fact, which have ranked voting. I think one is Berkeley, California. Another is Cambridge, Massachusetts. Instant runoff voting is another. IRV. People can Google instant runoff voting. The different ways that it is done. And I mean, in Europe, they have a parliamentary system. In Italy, there's some 15 political parties. In the Netherlands, 2 seats in the legislature are reserved for the Animal Rights Party, so that the voice of animals is represented in the Dutch Parliament. There are all kinds of wonderful experiments which revive voting. Which, I mean, there's so many people who refuse to register to vote now because they know that it's all screwed and that the choices are horrible and they don't want to be part of it. So as a principle, they don't register to vote. And there are 42% of the electorate registered as independents, a greater number than for either the Republican or Democratic parties. There you go. It's a powerful block. I mean, in Philadelphia, so many people there were 300,000 residents of Philadelphia who have been in jail. And a movement was put together to register them to vote and be a block to vote for Larry Krasner for district attorney, a man who had over 30 years been a public defender. And they put forward their demands. And they got the guy elected, and the number of people incarcerated without bail waiting for a trial for a year or more is being sharply reduced. People are being let out of jail. The prison industrial complex is being kicked in the butt in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, I think it was 4 years ago, 24 schools were closed and a supermax prison opened. So it is a dreadful, horrid, and a criminal system itself, which incarcerates people for profit. There are so many issues in Pennsylvania. I've written a book about health insurance regulation called A Crime, Not a Crisis. That the collusion in Pennsylvania between regulators, legislators, and administrators of insurance in Pennsylvania is rigged to maintain a virtual monopoly, to maintain health insurance as a very lucrative and expensive industry, which keeps a lot of people under the thumb.
It does. I saw on your platform that you do talk about schools, not prisons. And you'd be surprised how many of my candidates do not have that on their platform. But I ask every single one because it needs to be discussed. Now, you also talk about legalizing cannabis, and these go hand in hand. We know that people of color are, incarcerated for minimal things such as that. So, the prisons would be less populated if we did have cannabis legalized. So what is, I kind of assume you feel that way, what other things contribute to that thought process for you, why we should legalize cannabis?
Well, as governor, I would not only legalize cannabis and encourage that everybody grow it, and a hemp industry related to it. I certainly would pardon the people, the nonviolent drug offenders, get them out of jail, and at the same time into a green jobs programs. I've written the book Deep Green Jobs, and also the book Green Jobs Philly. And I detail in these books how we could create 500,000 green jobs in Pennsylvania, reviving the soil, the water, the air, preparing this state for the next 10 generations, and in fact, fully employing the next 10 generations of people who otherwise, by default, are thrown into jail. There's a lot of talk of STEM jobs, uppercase, And I think that there's a need for lowercase STEM jobs. So this is a revolving door between being in jail and being thrown on the streets and not being connected to a constructive economy, an ecological economy. And that's an essential part of my platform. So we would let the people out of jail who are in there for nonviolent drug offenses. And at the same time, we would create constructive and lovely alternatives for people who turn to drugs because they're unhappy, disconnected, stressed, not respected. Be connected to communities of people who are having a good time rebuilding society toward balance with nature. But I think the hemp industry is a wonderful possibility statewide. You just make everything out of hemp and reduce deforestation. Is it for paper, for plastic, for clothing, for everything? And it would be wonderful to be the governor of the state and raise these issues. Again, a lot of people get elected to prominent positions, and then they're surrounded by the people who say, well, welcome to office. Hey, nice desk you've got here. And you have all this authority. And, to run this state, you need money. Where money comes from? Comes from us. So here's what we want. And so the whole idea of taking control of money as a grassroots, I want to establish a state bank so that the taxes of the state go back into a bank specifically dedicated to doing these kinds of things, to developing green jobs, to developing a green economy, reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, replacing that dependence with solar and wind, and particularly insulation. So to control money. One of the organizations I started was the local currency, and there are so many ways that we can take grassroots control of money and keep money in the state for state purposes and empower the people of the state, both urban and rural. There's a whole lot of talk about Pennsyltucky, or disparaging, and I have one of my 40 campaign posters says Pennsyltucky is green. And when we talk about the basic needs that everybody has for steady housing, reliable housing, and steady work, and good food, and health care access, it cuts through this whole idea of conservative and liberal through urban and rural. I mean, I think 5 million people who had voted for Obama turned around and voted for Trump. They're fed up with Republicans, and they're fed up with Democrats, and they're fed up with Republicans. The choices make them angrier and angrier and angrier as they're confined in that cage. And so the Greens come along and say, hey, let's break out of that cage. And let's make our own laws that serve us. Let's make our own money that serves us. Make our own health cooperative system serves us, and expand it to the whole state. Yes.
Do you think that should you be elected, these things happen? Do you think that you see it moving to other states then?
Oh, yes. And the initiatives that I take are all local, but they are intended to be models that replicate statewide, nationally, and globally. In the local currency that I started got national and global attention. People from all over the country and all over the world came to visit, famous people included. You do something odd enough, the media grabs hold of it. The same thing with the health co-op that I started, and that began to replicate. And I started Citizen Planners, an organization, in 1978 to transfer control of the planning process to the people who most urgently need control of planning, and not just professionals and developers and capitalists, but average people who live in neighborhoods. And that has replicated all over the country. And the Philadelphia Orchard Project has spun off the Baltimore Orchard Project from pop to bop. And it makes the idea of orchards in the city a natural part of the development process. So throughout the country, throughout my decades of innovation on behalf of ecology and justice, everything that I have done has been done with enough of a novelty and with a manifesto and a sense of fun that has brought media attention and helped it therefore replicate. So, yes.
Awesome. What is different from your job plan from the federal jobs here? What are the differences?
Well, again, the jobs that I would create would undertake a wholesale rebuilding of civilization toward balance with nature, every stick and brick. That is to say, everything normal, which has been built upon the assumption that there is endless, cheap fossil fuel, that we can have that regardless of how deep we have to mine, how thoroughly we have to frack, how many mountaintops and forests we have to clear cut. That civilization has run its course, that hereafter, and a civilization based on that assumption will destroy the next generations. And that, therefore, the entire rebuilding of civilization toward balance with nature requires deep green jobs. Among the programs I would start as governor, I call it the Green Labor Administration, GLAD, GLAD. And it would employ, as I said, 500,000 people in Pennsylvania without raising taxes. It's just a matter of shifting the budget from those things which gladden the heart of capitalist investors in short-term gain, destroying the environment and controlling workers, to those programs which, like this, would liberate the creativity of average people during the next several generations to create an economy which prospers by reviving and repairing the environment, and particularly cities. The cities are full of beautiful children, and they deserve cities as beautiful as they are. And to me, that is progress. Nothing else is progress. I guess I'm an old hippie, and I love pretty colors, nonviolence, and cities should be like, they should smell good. They should be, family, friendship, color, fragrance, texture, sex, eternity, love, invention, and sun should be embodied by cities rather than
all
like
things beautiful and positive. Absolutely.
And they are all possible. They are all proven practical. It's just a matter of pushing forward and through such models, taking control of land and law and money on behalf of such beautiful possibilities as are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting. Speaking of an old hippie, I was actually kind of curious how you felt about Bernie. I wasn't going to go there, but I was, I never know. Some like hate him for whatever reason. So somebody actually put a quote. Pamela Scott Hanrahan. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name. It says. A quote by you: "Embrace Bernie as a model for your life, even more than as a candidate. You'll provide America with new definitions of success and practicality, exactly when we need these."
Yes, I wrote that. That was an article I wrote for Huffington Post.
Oh, okay.
And that was at the high point of his candidacy. And I thought it was great. What he was saying was great. He was inspiring. I expected that if he became president, he would either be assassinated or confined. But at that point, I rode the wave. I encouraged people to be excited about burning. And I expected that he would be stiff-armed. I expected that he would be kicked aside by the Democratic establishment. And he was. And then I encouraged people to vote for Jill Stein. Bernie has insisted on trying to retain the rebellion within the Democratic Party. And I'm curious as to why he thinks that is possible, practical. The party's been long since taken over by the old guard corporate machine, which is grinding the earth and people into hamburger, and is making war and a whole lot of other very bad things. And I was very happy to vote for a woman for president, but not a woman like Hillary Clinton, whose policies would not have benefited women. And they're saying that opens a lot of discussion among people I care a lot about and respect who believe otherwise. Not only women in this country, but women upon whom bombs would fall and sanctions imposed.
Right, or the people of Haiti where money would be stolen and all those things that cognitive dissonance
all that kind of
stops
stuff.
people from acknowledging. But yes, I definitely concur. So I'm sure you deal with tons of just feeling completely defeated. I don't want to vote anymore. My votes don't count. You saw what happened to Bern. What's the point? So how do you kind of convince people otherwise? Like, we still have to vote because otherwise we don't have a chance. So what do you say to people who feel that way?
Well, for me, voting is merely a part of a far bigger range of efforts to build a better society. Waiting around for an elected official to wave a magic wand and make things better, I've never believed that would be the case. I was disabused of that idea 50 years ago. You vote for Lyndon Johnson, the peace candidate, and then he grinds our generation into hamburger in Vietnam. And every candidate that I've ever heard talk says one thing and then another. I mean, in my case, what I'm talking about is what I've done for 50 years. And doing and saying such things has not made me rich, except in having met thousands of people and having been able to advocate and encourage and empower many, many other people. And that to me is success. That is wealth. And if I'm the governor of Pennsylvania, I would proceed in that manner, and I would not listen to lobbyists. Again, I would open the door for this wonderful variety of grassroots activism that for 4 years, I published Green Jobs Philly News in Philadelphia, a monthly catalog or collage of the greening of the Philadelphia economy. And every week, new organizations within this theme popping forth and offering their generous and very creative notions of different ways of running an economy. And so these are the people in Philadelphia and all over the state to whom I would open the door, who I would welcome in the office, but not the lobbyists. And I've stood up to big, tough, powerful economic forces for decades, and I've won. I have beaten them. If they want to put a highway through our town, an incinerator to pour out dioxin, which causes birth defects and cancer, to put a shopping mall in wetlands, and so on and so on and so on. I've started grassroots movements which have beaten them.
Awesome. Mark Fabian, who is one of our RP teammates, first of all, Mark, can you get rid of that dumbass who's asking about the couch and just block him? Anyway, he wanted to know, if you gain office, how will you work with Congress and Senate filled with all of those liberals to get your platform implemented?
Well, of course, I would rely on the base. That is to say, instead of horse trading, I would seek to raise loudly the voice of the grassroots insurgent forces and refer to them as raising the demand. The governor appoints, specific powers the governor has, among other things, is crafting a budget. I would craft a budget. And I would not just depend on the legislators to push and pull. I would constantly refer to the base. Say, if you want this, you push. The Green Party needs more candidates at this point, is inviting more people to run for state offices, state legislature, House, Senate. The ballot line is open. Just contact us. We need more candidates. With a few signatures on a petition, you'll be on the ballot. So the governor also appoints members of the Board of Pardons. Can appoint a whole lot of people to the Board of Pardons who will pardon the tokers, for example. The governor controls the National Guard and can bring them back from foreign wars to do good stuff in our state rather than hurt people in other countries. That's very contentious. Make a lot of people angry to say that. Thank you for your service to Pennsylvania. Thank you for your service to the future of our environment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, something we've all learned is that people are going to be pissed regardless, so we may as well do what's right, and
yes,
they can deal with it.
That's right. That's right. And I have 50 years experience saying things which are unpopular among a lot of people. And my aim, of course, is that the Green Party be not a fringe on the left, but that we'll pull as many votes from Republicans as Democrats, because we're talking about basic nuts and bolts, needs of average people. And my aim is that, yes, that's the aim here, that we become centrists, because we're directly addressing the central concerns of average people.
I saw you posted that, and I was like, what? But then I analyzed it more, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Because the centrist has a really bad connotation.
Indeed. And of course, being a fringe element on the left or the right means being forever not taken seriously. It means being out of power. But if our central concerns of ecology and justice in ways that meet the basic needs of average people for good housing and steady work, health care, and clean water, fresh air, those are central concerns. And if we prevail without diluting and compromising those demands and the wonderful opportunities that are before us, then we become centrists. We will be the centrists, right at the middle of the action, right at the middle of policy, right at the middle of power together, rather than power over, power together.
Do you anticipate a debate with Governor Wolf? Has anything been said?
Well, need to collect 5,000 valid signatures on nominating petitions before August 1st. So we have 90 days.
Okay.
We have 90 days, and we've got a good chunk of that so far. But if my signatures are certified, and then I will be an official candidate on the ballot and invited into the debates.
Okay, well, I probably don't have to tell you this, but get more than 5,000.
Our aim is 8,000.
Okay, good.
Go to greenwavepa.org. greenwavepa.org. There they can sign up to receive nominating petitions in the mail. And whether people gather 1, 5, 10, 50, 100, it doesn't matter. Every bit counts. Every bit helps. And this is another way to vote, by collecting signatures on our behalf.
Absolutely. I'm going to give this information to the gentleman who runs the Green Party book in Harrisburg, and make sure he has that information so he can at least network with our local people. Because I know you probably aren't going to have time to go all the way across our state yourself. That would be kind of intense. So,
in 1978, I decided to walk across the United States just to see the country. I walked from Boston to San Diego, and I walked all the way across Pennsylvania from the Delaware Water Gap to the southwest corner. So I do have somewhat of an intimate familiarity with the state, and found people very nice in the most rural places in our state, all across Pennsylvania, and in some of the larger cities as well. So I have some familiarity. Some of the people I met may remember me 40 years later. If I'm invited into a big city and it has rail or transit access, then I'm ready to go. Yeah, just set up an occasion and I'd be very happy to visit. People have signed my
petition. Noticed you were...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. You go.
I noticed you were friends with some of the guys in March on Harrisburg. So they marched from Philly to Harrisburg to get money out of politics.
Yeah.
So it's not nearly as long as what you did, but it's still impressive.
One of the articles that I wrote for Huffington is titled Power Marching, Demonstrations That Get Results. There's a whole lot of marching going on, a whole lot of banner waving, and a whole lot of righteous indignation. But to back that with leverage, demands that actually get results, is yet another challenge of the left.
Absolutely. We have a lot of slack for this, as we say. It's not enough to talk on Facebook and such. We have to get off our asses and actually do something.
Yeah.
I digress, but you brought up a good point. There are not a lot of people running in certain areas of PA. And a lot of the jobs, when you go to vote, there's nobody even nominated. So it's just a completely open job essentially. So if someone runs in that district for that specific title, they'll get it because no one else is running. So I encourage people who are watching to actually look into that, because it seems like every time I vote, there's at least a couple open spaces. I don't want to run because I say fuck too much and all that stuff, but I definitely encourage others to look into it. You
When I'm
also talk
governor,
about
you will be invited to say fuck in public.
yeah, I mean, if you get elected, I'm expecting a job.
Oh, yes.
Seriously.
The minister of something or other. A whole lot of authority is official-looking pieces of paper. And in fact, I've done that before for people who needed a credential of one sort or another. Just a nice design, graphic, Gothic letters, and you're in. Yeah, no, we'll have all kinds of. The door is open. The door is open. Just so you don't have to slide your resume under the door.
I'll be right up the street. I'm right next to Harrisburg. So
you are the who you know state. It's a who you know economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Glad to meet you, and you're on your way to the pinnacle of power in our state. Yes.
Just another reason for you guys to vote for Paul, to help me out with my career. I work in healthcare. I need something more exciting.
Oh yeah. This is how it works. This is how it works. Yeah.
If there's one thing you want to leave our viewers with to take away from our show to inspire them to recommend you to people in Pennsylvania, or to maybe throw you a few dollar donation or check out your website, what would you like to leave them with?
Well, I guess it's really important for me, and something I've learned over the decades is, the times can be dark or confusing, but if you keep on going, there is always a path. And the Greens are offering a path. There are many paths, many ways to go about paths, and they're spiritual and political, and a combination of those. If we look at the basic needs that everybody has and seek to model and meet those needs, beginning locally, on behalf of ecology and social justice, if we connect to the movements, the innovations around us, we will learn as we go. We will connect with one another. And because the need is enormous and necessary, we will prevail. To connect with what I've been doing, my website personally is paulglover.org. That's Glover, like Danny Glover, with Paul in front of it, paulglover.org. And there's a link from that to my page for governor. On Facebook, it's Glover for Governor. That's Glover, the number 4, Glover, Governor. Glover for Governor. And then when you can also on Facebook find the Green Party of Pennsylvania, the Green Party of Philadelphia, and of course there's the Green Party of the United States, which is a massive intersection of wonderful activity. In whatever state your viewers may be in, there's something going on. Whatever county you live in, there's something going on, or something that you could start. And again, as you said, there are many places where maybe there's a Republican on the ballot and there's no Democrat, or a Democrat and there's no Republican. And you can jump into that, and with a few hundred signatures, you can be on the ballot. You can shoot off your mouth. You can suggest ideas. You can have a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun. Another article I wrote is how to run for office, or it's called Run for It, how to run for office. And I'd be very happy to hear from anybody who connects with this show, with your presentation, with our conversation, and continue the conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely want you to check out the comments. A lot of good stuff in there. So I saw somebody, I believe it was Denise. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. I assume you're talking about candidate Trent Nesmith. He is coming on for a second time on the 16th. He's a friend of mine, so we will definitely be discussing all of that. Otherwise, if you are in Pennsylvania, the primary is the 15th. In May, there are 11 primaries, and in June, there are 18 primaries. So 29 in the span of 2 months. So we got to get off our asses. There's a lot of stuff to be done. Do your research, get registered, get petitions, door knock, phone bank, do whatever you can to get progressives and the right people elected. Friday, well, I have Wednesday, a guy from PA running for Congress. His name is Tom Prigg. Friday, I have Selena Vickers from West Virginia. She's running for House, and she is a badass who's taking on the DNC. And Saturday, I am going to be seeing Bernie for the 7th time and recording that at 10:30 a.m. So I got a busy week. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Thank you, Paul, for joining us. You were awesome. I expected you to be. And I'd actually like one of our other live streamers, to have you on as well. So I'm going to recommend you to him because I think you guys would hit it off as well.
Great.
And I want to get more publicity.
Thank you, Joy.
Absolutely. I wish you all the best.
Opportunity, and I'd be happy to talk with you and any of your friends anytime.
Thank you so much. Best of luck, and everybody have a great night.